So, welcome to another MBD Blogs, but you will have to bear with me on this one because I have actually got a cold. So not feeling the greatest at the moment. But Happy New Year to everyone. A few people wrote in about the last one and they said, oh, it was great, thanks for doing it, blah, blah, blah. Are there going to be any more? And the answer to that is yes. It's been left to me to write out, the topics that we're going to cover. And I don't know if you can see this, I don't even know where the end of this is. But I had some spare time on my hands, so I was writing and writing and writing. And it's kind of all in here. It's a big mess, but the gist of the story is there, really. So of course the last one was about fire safety, and that was interesting enough. This one is about customer safety, because it is important that, not only as a company, but as an individual DJ, that you make sure that, the guests attending to the events that you're doing are kept safe. The thing with customer safety is that there are so many different aspects to it. The first one is that if you're going to be a DJ and you are going to be entertaining the general public, it's kind of really important that you have the public liability. And the reason that you would have that is so that, if you set up and someone who was sober at a party tripped over a lead that you'd accidentally left out and they injured themselves and they put in a claim against you, you've got insurance there to back you up. So, it's set common sense basically to have it. There are a few points that I will make in this video. The first one is that when you're buying equipment, try and do it in a shop where you can actually see it set up, because I'm getting a text as I do this. A common misconception with DJs is that the more lights I buy and the more speakers I buy, the better people are going to think I am, and that's really not the truth. The fact is that with most DJs, if you just turned up with a little loudspeaker and you set up in the corner and you had one disco light going on, you can still have a really, really good night just on that. So it doesn't matter if you've got all this tons of equipment, it just doesn't matter. In fact, in the olden days, especially with the old lights, the more that you had, the more chance you actually had of blowing a fuse in the building and just really embarrassing yourself. And that has actually happened to me. I was doing an outdoor gig once, and we were in this tent in a field, and everything was going fine. We had a little generator that we were plugged into, and there was also a bouncy castle outside that was plugged into it as well. And I was like, oh, right, okay, nice one, great. And then it got a little bit later, so I thought, well, I'll put the lights on. So I just plugged in the lights, and then the music went off, and the bouncy castle stopped making a noise, and the fella came on and he was like, the bouncy castle's deflating as it burst. And I was like, I think the power's gone. So we have had power issues in the past, but that said, with LED lights, we are using less power, so blah blah blah. That kind of brings me on to the next point, is that you are to check your power usage and your supply. If you're going to have all of these hundreds of lights and the best amps available and powered speakers and everything like that, you've got to make sure that you've got enough power to supply all of that. So have a look at what you could do without. If you turn up to a hall and there is only one socket in there, what bits of equipment can you do without? Because obviously you don't want to be overloading that socket, because it's going to cause a lot of problems if you can't find another one and that goes. So, make sure that you're prepared for these sorts of things. Also, do little regular tests on the equipment that you've got. One thing that you can buy on eBay, and I think Amazon do them as well, is called a PAT tester. I can't remember what it stands for, but basically it just makes sure that the piece of equipment that you've got is actually doing electrically that it's got a complete circuit and there's no shortages in that. If it passes a pat test, it's fine to be used in hospitals and that sort of thing. But just make sure for your own safety that you do have good equipment, that it is in right working order, because like I said, you don't want to be turning up to a gig and have something go wrong and it could have been something that you've fixed earlier on because you've identified the problem earlier. So, you know, doing the little checks do pay off. The other thing is check out the type of work that you're going to be doing. Some of the lights that we can carry as DJs, like strobe lights. Strobe lights come in all different sizes and all different powers. Just think ahead, because if you're going to go and do a wedding for a couple that is 60 years old, for example, they're not going to need the biggest strobe light going in the world. And, you know, some people do have bad reactions to strobe lights, so you need to make sure that you've got warnings out there. But, you know, not every wedding needs a strobe light, so think ahead of what you're doing, and only take with you what you actually need. One of the main important things, and it's something that other DJs who I follow on YouTube do point out occasionally, is to check the stability of your equipment. These days, you know, you have the speakers up on the poles, you have your lights on poles, some of us even have the tables on poles, you know, just everything's on poles. But make sure that what you're doing is actually sound. I know, excuse the pun there, but how can I put it in a nice way? If you have like a massive speaker and the legs on the pole that you're putting that speaker on are only like that much spread apart, that's not going to hold your speaker. You need to make sure that they're spread out as much as possible, and it'll give it more stability. Obviously, if you have got really big speakers, even if they have got the little poles, like the pole holes in the bottom of them, doesn't necessarily mean that they're meant for just a pole for themselves. It might well mean that that's a way of sticking them to the bass bin or something like that. So, you know, just be a little bit wise on these things. Check for extra safety features on pieces of equipment that you've got. Speakers are really dead easy. Near enough all speakers have handles, so if you are setting up and you know it's going to be loud and you've got big speakers, if you can tie something onto them handles and then attach them to a wall or something like that. It's something I've done in the past and it does come in really handy, especially when people do try and use the speaker pole as a pole to have a dance around. Things like lasers. Often lasers that are made these days will actually have a little safety hook on the back, and the reason for that is that you can actually then strap it on to something else. It can be the pole that you've set it up on, it can be a speaker, it can be whatever, but it just basically means that if the original thing holding it in place breaks, there is something else. It's not going to crash down, and if a laser crashes down, move. That's all I'm going to say. Consider the look of things as well. Don't always turn up to a gig in a place where you've never been before and think, I'm going to take everything I've got, because the chances are you're going to try and get all of your setup in there and it's going to fill the room, and that's a massive safety thing, because people have still got to be able to get around you. Because trust me, if you're working around drunk people, if they want to talk to you, they are going to talk to you. So always leave a little way for people to get through that's quite safe, so you know, like no leads going over that little pathway and that sort of thing, you know, just clever little things like that. So the next part is Ask MBD, and we have had a few more questions in from last time. I know that the last video that we made was about the fire safety, and we did have a few questions about that, but we're going to answer them individually because there wasn't enough for us to do a whole Ask MBD section. So our first question is, how much does a full DJ setup cost? It completely depends what you're after. The one that I use, more often than not. It's actually hard for me to give a price because I do vary it. Like sometimes I'll take more lights, sometimes I'll take no lights. I'm guessing altogether it's going to be in the region of, I don't know, about £2,000-3,000. It's not a lot because I've built it up over the years. You know, often buying things when they've gone on sale and that sort of thing. So it's probably worth a bit more, but it does its job. So it can be anything. If for a really, really basic setup, it can be a couple of £100. For a really, really good setup, you are looking at thousands of pounds. So it's whatever you want, really. What kind of money should I be looking to pay for a DJ these days? That's a really good question. There are no comparison websites for DJs. It's a case of you look around and see which one can offer you the best service of what you want. Price wise, it completely varies. We at MBD charge by the hour, and my god, where are we up to now? I think ours have just gone down to £25 an hour. £25 an hour. I think. Is that bad? I don't know the price. I will have to check on that at some point. I think it's down to 25 an hour. It did go up to 30 for an hour, but then we were able to find ways to like cut back on costs. So it came back down again, and we often do like special deals as well. So it completely varies. The only thing I can say as an answer to that question is shop around, see what's out there, see what DJ can offer you the best service, and if you're happy with that, go for it. Where to complain to if I have a problem with my DJ? That's kind of another good question. There is no like ombudsman of the entertainment industry. There are for like TV channels and that sort of thing, but if you're hiring a mobile DJ, other than him, I don't think you're actually going to be able to complain to anyone else. You know what, most DJs are quite okay if you have a problem with them, so just explain what your problem is or what your complaint is and just remain calm, and you know, just talk things through and see what happens. That's my only bit of advice for that, really. So thank you for watching. I hope I've answered all of your questions as best possible, and I shall see you soon.